This is Steffen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com. We wanted to do a follow-up on Osama bin Laden's death, and let me just talk about a couple of different things. First of all, it was, of course, a huge surprise. There was no advance notice to anyone. The American news media was not at all alerted to this. Apparently, it was a leak-proof operation. None of the American allies, the Pakistani government, nobody was informed of it. It was a small circle of intelligence officers, the president and his national security team who knew about it, and therefore it was successful partly because Osama bin Laden did not have any idea that he had been sniffed out, and after 10 years I think you get sloppy, and I think he probably got sloppy. So it was a sudden surprise, and because of that it was more dramatic than it would have been if we'd been talking about the fact that, you know, they might be catching or killing him, and it got a lot more attention because it was essentially breaking news all over. So that's number one. Number two, it was extraordinary to see the pictures from the White House photographer of the president and his national security team sitting in the Situation Room in the basement of the White House, watching, apparently in real time, the operation unfold. I don't know as any American president has ever commanded a military operation that way, in real time, able to essentially see and listen to the stages of the special forces, the assault helicopters coming in, and the operation then being conducted. We don't know exactly how much the president saw. My guess is he saw everything, including the killing of Osama bin Laden, because American soldiers now often in these special operations carry digital cameras on their helmets or on their shoulders, and they can transmit that back by satellite directly to Special Operations Command in Tampa, Florida, and of course then directly in a secure line to the White House and other intelligence centers. So that was sort of a, let's call it a breakthrough in terms of how a president conducts a military operation, in that without being in the battlefield or somewhere geographically away from the White House, the president and his team was able to follow this operation. Number three, it is clear that Osama bin Laden was killed, and the United States made the decision of not using remote military tactics such as cruise missiles or armed drones or bombs dropped, bunker busters or other bombs. Instead they decided, and President Obama decided apparently, to go in with physical operations and actually seize the location and do the job on the ground. And I think in history we'll record this as a major event, and it will especially record the fact that the president didn't jump to any conclusions, didn't do this precipitously, but thought it out, worked it through, and apparently from the time that they had intelligence for him that Osama bin Laden probably was at the site, he worked it through very carefully. He's been criticized a lot by his opponents for overthinking everything, and I don't think anyone is going to be able to criticize him for overthinking this, because that was what made it a successful operation. I think I'm on number 4 now, so what came out of the operation was not only the decapitation of the Al-Qaeda movement, the killing of its leader, and a huge shock to the system of that particular organization, but also the aftermath of it is that the United States probably has the single greatest treasure trove of intelligence information it's ever had on terrorist operations, at least by the Osama bin Laden franchise and the Al-Qaeda franchise. It's clear that they seized computers, laptops, disk drives, flash drives, DVDs, videos, CDs, and other storage devices, and probably even paper and physical written analog material that deals with all kinds of terrorist organizations and cells. that will reveal, number one, who's doing what, where, when, and how, as we say in political science. In other words, it will probably uncover, and they're working on this 24/7, I understand, at the CIA and at the National Security Agency and at Defense Intelligence. Where are terrorist organizations specifically located? Who's leading them? What operations have they got planned? And I'm guessing in the next few months we will see, and maybe not even hear about them because they may be done secretly, a lot of takedowns. A lot of these organizations may very quickly be disabled, dismantled, killed in the process of follow-through from the intelligence that was gathered at this mansion that Osama bin Laden was living in Pakistan. That's something that's more valuable than anything else you could possibly do. It's like when the Americans got a hold of the German Enigma encryption machine and then were able to decode all of the German intelligence for months and months and months, and the Germans didn't know it. Of course, in this case, the terrorists do know that this has gone down. So number 5, it means that a lot of terrorists are going to be scattering very quickly to other locations, shutting down their shops, moving, closing down things, and going into hiding, going underground, because they are going to probably suspect that they are now in the crosshairs, if you'll pardon the expression, in the crosshairs of Western and especially American intelligence. I'm sure that there are lots of operations in France, in Germany, Great Britain, and other places that are now going to be supplied information by the United States from this operation and are going to go after domestic terrorists in those countries. We already saw Germany taking down a terrorist cell in Düsseldorf that was building bombs. So that's an enormous side effect, a kind of bonus from having conducted the operation the way they did. I want to talk a little bit also about the sort of psychological and political consequences of this. The United States has been in a funk. The United States has been feeling sorry for itself. The numbers in the polls show that Americans are not confident about the future, that they're concerned and worried, especially about the economy and so on. And what we saw on the night when the news broke that Osama bin Laden had been killed was kind of a surge of patriotism, surge of national unity, a rallying around the flag, and there were demonstrations everywhere all over the country. People were cheering, people were celebrating, shouting USA, USA, singing the national anthem in a spontaneous way that hasn't been seen for a long time. The sort of psychological boost that gives Americans, just in a general way, I think cannot be bought for gold or coin. It's just one of those moments when the United States feels good about itself. It's accomplished a difficult job of finding the terrorist who led the attack against the United States and completing that successfully. I think it raises the sense that we are able to do complicated and difficult things, and that sometimes it takes a long time, 10 years, to get it really done. And that may also spill over into our self-confidence about being able to deal with budget deficits, which are difficult, with the economic recovery, which is difficult. If we can do this, maybe we can get together and also successfully overcome some of those other obstacles. And I think that is a sort of mood of the country kind of side effect that I see. I think that the other question that's come up, and it's the one I'm least comfortable talking about, but I will, and that is, what are the political side effects of this? What does this mean for Obama? What does it mean for re-election? What does it mean for the upcoming Iowa caucuses and national presidential aspirations of the Republicans? I do think it has a very large impact on it. Probably not a direct impact in a sense, but indirectly it takes away from challengers to Obama the legitimacy of criticizing him on the basis of this, that he's weak on defense, that he's weak on terrorism, and sadly enough that he is maybe a Muslim, which a lot of Republicans and conservatives and people who don't like Obama have been repeating and repeating. I think all of that really goes away because it is no longer acceptable to take a line of attack like that on President Obama after an operation like this, which is widely praised. George W. Bush, who called President Obama, and they spoke, I guess, himself praised Obama for the operation. Of course, Bush took a little credit for having essentially set up the necessary operations to do intelligence and to gather information, even sometimes distastefully to get information at Guantanamo Bay and so on to make this happen. So I think the Republicans are going to have a very difficult time now attacking Obama on the basis of his competency, on the basis of his patriotism. They're going to have to find some other lines to challenge him on. The birther issue, the question of whether he was a native-born American and is a legitimate president, I think is now gone, at least for most Americans, probably not for the ones that really don't like Obama. So the campaign for President of the United States in 2012 is going to sharpen around other questions. And the Republicans are having a hard time, as you probably know, finding viable candidates to run, candidates that can challenge Obama successfully. I think it may have also thrown a little cold water on Donald Trump, who has been astonishingly and incomprehensibly disrespectful of President Obama, dismissive, and plain nasty, and I think people are not going to tolerate that. And I think Donald Trump may be smart enough to understand that this is not probably going to go over very well at this point. You noticed probably that Obama is going to follow up and use this particular accomplishment to move on and do other things, such as go to the World Trade Center to give a speech and essentially to remind people that the United States is still in the struggle against terrorism. That brings me to my final point, which is that the killing of Osama bin Laden has not putting an end, or will not end terrorism, as most people have said. Terrorism is a process. It goes on. Sometimes there's more of it, sometimes less. It is a matter of constant vigilance against groups that want to use violence, and especially violence against often innocent civilians and soft targets, hotels, shopping malls, movie theaters, and places like airports. And so the United States and its allies and others who are concerned about this are going to have to continue to ferret out, find, disable, dismantle, and if necessary, kill terrorists who are planning these attacks. But it certainly is I would think, a demoralizing event for terrorist organizations to see the master terrorist himself, the one who sort of cooked up the big scheme of terrorism, no longer with us. And I'm guessing that the fact that the U.S. is trying to treat him at least with some respect in his death, as they apparently followed Islamic practices, cleaned his body, wrapped it, and buried him at sea, that will have at least a small amount of goodwill among people. And also President Obama was very careful when he talked about this accomplishment to say the United States is not at war with Islam, that the United States is at war with terrorists, and that the United States wants to work with and be friendly to Islamic countries and Islamic people. And I think the Republicans would do very well to learn a lesson from that. Donald Trump the other day said that we should invade Libya, take the country over, and take over all the oil. He said, you know, when you invade a country and defeat it, you own everything that's there. I think people like that need to, frankly, shut up. The world is already complicated, dangerous, and suspicious enough. And to have American leaders and prominent people like Donald Trump saying things like that, and saying that some negative things about China and other countries is unacceptable. And I hope the Republicans themselves will realize that the death of Osama bin Laden is an opportunity to once again clarify that we go after terrorists and not Muslims. This is Steffen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com.